Guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another video, and today we're doing the race reaction for the USA Grand Prix, and what a race that was. I think it's got to be up there with race of the season. I absolutely love Circuit of the Americas. It is such an underrated circuit, and it provided once again with some fantastic action, loads to talk about. So let's waste no time, let's get into the race reaction. So once again, we'll start with Red Bull, and Max Verstappen takes another win in 2022, and he did it in, well, pretty dramatic fashion. Obviously he had the bad pit stop on lap 36, I believe it was, and that completely cost him what we thought was going to be the race. But then he bounced back, came through, overtook Lewis Hamilton on the closing laps, and managed to stay ahead of him, even on the faster tyre. But we thought those tyres were going to fall off the cliff. Well, at least my family thought they were going to fall off the cliff, but they didn't. He managed to hold on and take another victory, and now he's 13 wins this season, puts him level with Schumacher and Vettel for the most wins in a season. So I think he's definitely going to win the next, well, he's definitely going to win one of the three races to become, to set a new record, basically. But yeah, just an absolute dominant fashion for Red Bull, and obviously an emotional weekend for them as well after losing, I can't say his name, is it Dieter I can't even say it, but the guy who basically found Red Bull, basically. Yeah, a bit of a sad day for them. Perez also in fourth place as well, had a bit of an up and down sort of race. Obviously qualified pretty decently, not terrible. What do you expect from a sort of second driver, basically? Was promoted, demoted down to P9, and then managed to fight his way up into P4. Obviously got the contact with Bottas, I believe it was Bottas, on the first lap, which I thought was really going to compromise his race after the end plate was hanging off, which I'm surprised the FIA didn't bring out the meatball flag, as they call it. But they didn't ask him to pit or anything like that. And then it kind of fell off during the Grand Prix, and I'm surprised they didn't even change the front wing in the safety car pit stops, but obviously it wasn't really giving him that much of an effect. Otherwise I think they would have changed it straight away. But yeah, it's proving that those end plates aren't really maybe having a massive an effect on the cars as much as we thought. So yeah, it didn't really hinder Perez's race that much, and like I said, finished in P4, so a good haul of points for Red Bull. And they also do take the constructors as well this weekend, so yeah, it's definitely been a season to remember for Red Bull. Absolutely dominant, and yeah, you can't discredit them, you can't take anything away from them. They've been exceptional. And next up then, obviously, is Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton looking so good for the win. And obviously, as you guys know, massive Lewis Hamilton fan, I really thought he had it in the bag. And I obviously, being on the harder compound as well, I thought, you know, he had the better tyres toward the end of the race. I knew Verstappen was going to be catching him, but just when the gap was staying around 3.5 seconds, I was like, yes, this is good. And then it started to come down to like 2.1, and then it was under a second, and I was like, oh my god. But yeah, no, I think he did as much as he could. I felt like he could have defended the inside a little bit more when Max went for the overtake, but obviously, it was going to be hard for Lewis to keep him behind with I think it was like 6 laps remaining or something like that. It was going to be very hard for him. But yeah, definitely looking better, Mercedes. That's for damn sure. So it was great to see. And Red Bull definitely under pressure this weekend, as you saw, where they were covering off Mercedes after they made their pit stop and stuff. So it was good to see. But yeah, Lewis P2 in the Grand Prix, and George Russell P5 after getting a 5-second time penalty at the start of the Grand Prix for taking out Sainz, which completely ruined his race and had to retire. George fought back to 5th place. Yeah, apart from that, a little collision, didn't really see much of George, really. Didn't really have the pace to sort of come back through either. So yeah, lonely race for George, but a whole good points for Mercedes nonetheless. Next up, Ferrari then, and like I said, Carlos Sainz got unfortunately tagged at the start by George Russell. I would probably put it down as a racing incident, but I suppose he did get the 5-second time penalty because he benefited from it, really, and Sainz was last and then had to retire because there was too much damage on the car. Yeah, Sainz's bad luck continues this weekend. It just sums up Ferrari's season. Every race, it gets worse for Ferrari somehow, and I don't know how, but yeah, another DNF for Sainz. And Charles Leclerc obviously finished, got got 2nd place, Sainz got pole. The second place for Charles Leclerc in qualifying, and then obviously had to take the 10th place grid penalty, which demoted him down to 12th, and then fought his way back up to a podium finish. And I was a little bit helped out with the safety car, managed to jump Russell, and I believe Perez as well. But yeah, a lot of luck on Leclerc's side, but didn't really have the pace towards the end of the race like Verstappen had. So yeah, a bit of an average weekend for Ferrari, but definitely one to forget for Carlos Sainz. Next up is McLaren then, and Lando Norris absolutely flying halfway through the Grand Prix, just making moves here, left and right, and got very lucky in qualifying as well after Zhou's lap time was deleted. But yeah, P6 for Norris and P16 for Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, the man is just given up the season. You know, well, we all know that he's had a bad season, but now it's just getting ridiculous. Just didn't see him at all in the Grand Prix. Didn't do anything sort of spectacular. And it's definitely got to a point now where the sourness is definitely there, and I think Ricciardo's probably going to be happy once the season's over. And next up is Aston Martin and Sebastian Vettel. Take a bow, my friend, because what a performance. Obviously P7 I don't think really sums it up, because I feel like it could have been a lot more than that. He was leading the race at one point and then obviously got screwed over in the pit stop, which it was so devastating to see, and it completely cost him not the Grand Prix because he wasn't for the win, but it could have cost him. It cost him a lot of points basically. So it was a massive shame. I think he probably could have been. Well, he definitely would have been ahead of Norris, I feel, but whether or not he would have been able to challenge for the top 5, we didn't get to see it really, which was a shame. But yeah, just unbelievable from Vettel. And then that final lap with Magnussen, unbelievable around the outside. I think he did that several times throughout the Grand Prix. Just the bravery he had, and nearly losing the car as well on that final lap was insane, but absolutely incredible from Sebastian Vettel. And it's great to see him, really push towards the end, and obviously, coming down to his F1 career. Just brilliant to see. So take about Sebastian Vettel. Lance Stroll, on the other hand, also had a fantastic weekend, up until the point where he decided to move across on Fernando as he was coming in the slipstream. Just a bit of a clumsy incident, and it wasn't really rash, but it is still very dangerous to come across that late when someone's in the slipstream and pulls to the left hand side. And Fernando was a very lucky man, and I think Stroll was as well, because he was everyone around him did very well not to collect him. So yeah, very lucky on Stroll's behalf, but yeah, could have been a lot worse. But yeah, sorry, I just want to say on Stroll, he actually had a really good weekend up until that point. He was like P3 up until lap 1 after the contact with Russell and Sainz. So yeah, a crazy race for those guys. But yeah, it could have been a lot more for Stroll. So next up is Haas then, and like I said, Magnussen managed to get into P8 then and had that great battle with Vettel towards the end of the race, but he had no tyres left and did very well to get back into the points. Obviously, we would be talking about someone else at this point, but we'll get on to that in a second when we get to Alpine. But yeah, Magnussen managed to get into the points, a good hold of points for Haas, which I think it's his first scoring points as well since Austria, so a massive leap since he hasn't had any points. So it's great to see him back in the points. And Mick Schumacher, P14, had the contact with Latifi as Latifi tried to go down the inside. He got forced wide, and there was a little bit of contact as well. So yeah, couldn't really do much about that. But yeah, apart from that, didn't really see much else from Mick Schumacher, and pretty lonely race for him. Next up is AlphaTauri then, and they were a team that I think definitely struggled this weekend, but Tsunoda still managed to get into the points. P9 for Yuki Tsunoda, so that's good to see. Obviously promoted up into P9 because of Fernando Alonso's penalty, which I was sort of indicating to when I was talking about Haas, which we'll get on to in a second because I think it's ridiculous. But Pierre Gasly also P13 as well, had a miserable weekend, really struggling with brakes, just like he was in Japan. Yeah, it's not looking very good for Gasly at the moment, and really seeming frustrated on the radio at the moment as well. Now he's leaving AlphaTauri, starting to get a little bit more ballsier on the radio, which is good to see. We like to see a little bit of passion from the drivers, but yeah, not a good day for Pierre Gasly, but still points for AlphaTauri. So here we go then. Alpine are next, and Esteban Ocon managed to, well, got into the points from the pit lane, so it was a good comeback drive in the race, but obviously promoted into the points because of Fernando Alonso. But Ocon, yeah, had a pretty dismal weekend really, out in Q1, like P18 in Q1, so really struggling for pace in qualifying. And Fernando Alonso then finished the race in P7, and then I saw this morning that he got a 30-second time penalty because the FIA deemed the car to be unsafe after they released him back into the race after the contact with Stroll, which I think is just a bit ridiculous really, considering that, you know, he obviously didn't have that much of an issue because he managed to get the car back into P7 after nearly catapulting himself over the back of Lance Stroll's car. So I mean, I haven't really looked into the full details yet. I just saw that come up this morning before I started work. But yeah, just absolutely insane that the FIA have given 30 seconds as well. We never see 30-second time penalties in the Grand Prix. I don't know if it was also because of the wing mirror that fell off as well. That might have been why. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I have to read on the details. But I saw some of the reaction on social media and they weren't happy at all. So yeah, very ridiculous, but it put him down all the way down to P15. So yeah, very lucky for some of the guys to get promoted. But like I said, Alpine still got one single point. But that constructors battle between McLaren and Alpine is definitely going to be exciting. I think it's going to go down to the wire. But yeah, for me, that was just ridiculous. But Fernando, still take a bow, because the fact that you finished P7 in the race after that was just insane. So only Fernando Alonso, eh? Only Fernando Alonso. So next up, Alfa Romeo then, Guan Yu Zhou finished in P11, didn't really see anything of Guan Yu Zhou, and once again, Alfa were just a team that we just didn't see anything of. Bottas had an eventful race, like I said, had the contact with Perez at the beginning of the Grand Prix. Well, it wasn't really Bottas's fault. Perez just sort of steamed in there and was like, I'm coming through, mate, whether you like it or not. And then, yeah, then crashed out in the end of the Grand Prix. So yeah, not a good day for Alfa Romeo. And yeah, well, it wasn't P anything because he was TNF, but yeah, P11 for Guan Yu Zhou and no points for Alfa Romeo. And finally then, it's Williams, and Alexander Albon finished in P12, which was a bit of a shame. I feel like he deserved a little bit more. He had a pretty good weekend running in the points for a little bit of the race and having a few scraps here and there, which was good to see. But yeah, didn't really manage to convert it into points, unfortunately, even after all the safety cars and the penalties, unfortunately for him. And then Latifi, like I mentioned, last of the runners down in P17, had the contact with Mick Schumacher, like I said, tried to go down the inside and just made a cock up of it, basically. And yeah, no points for Williams, unfortunately. So I think also Logan Sargent's been announced as the new Williams replacement, so that's good to see an American coming into the sport as well, because, you know, America do provide a lot of money to the sport, and the fact that we've got 3 races next year is really going to help as well. And it's good that we're having all these good races as well in the United States, so it's really good to see. So there we go, guys, that is it for the race reaction for the US Grand Prix. And yeah, like I said, it was an absolutely crazy race. Really gutted for Lewis, obviously. Me being a massive Hamilton fan, really thought he was going to get the win, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. Verstappen was just too quick, and no matter what you throw at him, he just always bounces back. And obviously, you know, it wasn't his fault that the pit stop went wrong, but just insane. Vettel also got driver of the day as well, which I think was thoroughly deserved. It would have been great to see what he would have done if it wasn't for that cock up on the pit stop. But yeah, what a race. And only 3 races left, guys, in 2022. The season is flying by. And we've got Mexico coming up this weekend as well. But nevertheless, guys, if you have enjoyed it, please do give this video a thumbs up as always. Let me know your comments in the comment section down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that happened. Who was at fault for this Lance Stroll and Alonso incident? I still think it was more Stroll's fault. It was a bit of a clumsy incident. But nevertheless, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. And I will see you all again in the next one, guys. Take care.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind.